Hello everyone, I'm Grandmaster Dennis Borsch, and this time we're going to take a look at Ray Robson Spectacular game versus Sam Sevian. You can look at this position and already tell there is chaos on the board. But how did we get here? How did we get here? Now let me show you. So, the game started off with d4, c4. Surprisingly, Ray Robson didn't go for d5, probably sensing that there's preparation there. But he went for bishop g7 instead, going straight up to the king's Indian, which is not a bad choice, as both of these players, Sam Sevian and Ray, had to go for the win to catch up or hope to catch up with the on fire Wesley So. So e4, d6, bishop e2, bishop e3. A new way of playing. The idea, if black goes e5, there's d5, and then the pawns can start roaming down the board with g4, g5, and h4, h5, starting to attack black. But Ray came prepared and goes sort of in a Grunfeld style, trying to undermine these guys on e4, d4, and c4. But Sevian does not back down and tries to punish Ray for this indulgence of getting that knight out so early, and tries to gain space with this tempo winning move. Knight e5, h3, preparing the f4 move, e6. And we sort of get this Grunfeldish position where black is trying to undermine white's big center. However, white is the one with more space. f4, knight d7, takes, g4. Going all in, typical Sevian style, but here this is more than correct. b6, and interestingly enough, he could have tried, that is Ray Robson, with b5 and go banker style in this position. However, he chose the quite solid idea of b6, which is good as well. In c2, bishop b7, knight c5, bishop f3, just pressing on that square, and knight fd7, trying to block off that rook, activating the bishop. Now here Sevian should have tried h4, takes, queen takes, bishop e4, takes, and even though white is down a pawn, there is ample compensation for it, as Robson's kingside would be a little bit weakened. However, Sevian went for e5, queen e7, takes, knight b7. And this position, believe it or not, is very nice for black, as this king is an easy target, with white really not ready to attack with those loose guys on g1 and h1. Knight e2, rook c8, just getting those pieces in, knight c5, knight a5, hitting that c4 pawn. Now b4 deserves a mention, but it doesn't work because at the end of the day, that bishop is hanging. So bishop d4, knight c4, king b1, d5, f5. Another good practical choice by Sevian. Even though he's down a pawn and probably objectively worse, he's still looking to complicate matters and tries to conjure up some play against the d5 pawn. Bishop d4, knight e3. A typical array way of playing. Queen f6 probably would have been a little bit more circumspect, but Ray tries to be as aggressive as possible. e2, ef, taking a pawn and defending the knight. Knight f4, good way of complicating. Knight c4, knight e4. He's not backing down, that is Ray, and he's trying to go for the attack. Knight d5, check, queen c5. Setting up this queen c1 idea. If rook d2, then there's queen c1, and there is checkmate in the air. That's a big problem. So Sevian decides to play knight e2 instead. f4, just trying to make sure that Sevian is busy defending, and f3 is on the mark, trying to put pressure on the queen and the knight. b4, queen c2, inching ever so closer to this king on a1. Rook c1, and in these positions, some other players would try to consolidate. Not Ray, he's going for the most critical moves. And here, sacrificing the queen is the most critical, as he will get a piece and a rook for the queen and the dangerous f-pawn. However, it's gonna get murky, as we already saw in the beginning. Takes, king b2, f3, queen h2, check, f2, knight e7. Now, Ray here in big time trouble as both players were below 30 seconds. He chose king f7, but that turns out to be inaccurate. Here he should have gone king h8, probably even king g7 is playable. After queen e5, knight f6. The humble move is good enough because after rook f4, there's this very nice check, just chasing this rook away, otherwise you lose the queen, and after queens, this is just completely winning for black. But if you do not see this idea of knight c4, just chasing this rook away, this is indeed very dangerous for black. Indeed, he chose king f7 instead, queen f4, king e8, and king e8 was a big mistake by Ray. After knight f5, believe it or not, he would actually be lost, as queen e5 check is just going to win if you go this direction. Now there's multiple ways of mating, but probably the prettiest is knight h6, and there's no way this king can go to. However, Sevian played the logical queen e5, but the not most accurate one. Rook f3 check, king a4, and here b5 was played by Ray Robson. However, knight c3 is probably even better, king a3, and we arrive at the critical position. Now the best probable move is knight takes a2, and in case of king takes a2, there is rook a1 check. If you capture, there's always queening, king b2, check, check, and this is not an ugly checkmate that could have happened. However, not playing knight takes a2 is forgivable when you have a little time. The other move would be, and the more prosaic way, is to give a check, give another check, take, and check here. You can't take that because your king is under danger. And after king c6, there's rook e5, and it's gone. Now, there's another way, and a logical way of playing. What about queening right now? And believe it or not, queening here is a mistake, because after king c6, rook c3 check, the king will feel extremely safe on b7 behind these pawns, and with these guys on vacation, it is white who's attacking and black who's defending. The rook e1, rook 8, queen h8 check, king e7, queen d8, and believe it or not, these guys are just barely defending against the mate. King e6, check, queen h8, king g5 check, king h6 is the move, because queen f6 does run into rook d5 and you would lose the queen. King moves, and there's queen f6. King h6, of course, check, king g7, rook d7 check, and rook d8 is quite a strong move. And the only move is rook e8, or at least the best practical try. After queen g5, the repetition keeps happening because there's not enough pieces and enough coordination for black to actually hope for more. And if king f7, rook d7, and black has to go back to f8, otherwise there's checkmate on e7. However, instead of this, the other move is to check with rook c1, king b7, rook e1, and here white has the spectacular rook d8 check, and after king takes, there's knight c6, king d7, knight b8, and black king cannot get out of this windmill, and the game would end in a draw. So interestingly enough, queens doesn't win, but rook a5, rook takes e5 does. The other choice is what Ray played, and that is b5. Here, Sevian played king a5, which turns out to be losing, but what's fascinating, that queen takes b5 would still save the game. King f8, rook d8 check, king g7, just try to hide, queen e5, knight f6, trying to build a blockade, rook g8, queen c7, and here the knight e8 move is amazing, defending against any jumps from the knight. If we would queen, in that case, knight f5, you can't capture because queen g7 is checkmate. And you are in big trouble. And this is a similar kind of checkmate that we've seen before. So here, knight e8 is the best move. Queen d8, rook b4, and here, actually, black is in due time to stop all black threats with knight f6, closing in that rook and making sure there's no mate and this queening is incoming. Rook e8, queens, check, king e6, check, knight b4, and believe it or not, black is just better, not winning. And in fact, after g5, stopping this g5 move, black is the one who's pushing for the win, but it's still anyone's game. Now, king a5 was played instead of queen b5, which would have held, probably. But after rook a3, king b5, queens with check, queen f6, Ray Robson won the game, and with that, he's only a half point behind the leading Wesley So. So I really hope you enjoyed this lesson and you enjoyed this Ray Robson Spectacular. And if you have any thoughts, comments on this game, don't forget to write it down below. Thank you for watching and have a good day.